Alright, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. The cheese shape. Okay, so I'm not actually making a cheese shape. It's actually one of my failed attempts I had for generating terrain. Yes, that's right. In this video, I'm making another new shape to generate terrain. But first, I need to make the terrain generator shape. Once again, it's basically a copy of the cuboid shape in its base form, only difference being that it also has the Perlin octave generator and needs a few extra checks. I also added a parameter to start with, to set the octave count. Octaves? Perlin noise? Already confused? Well, don't worry, I have many more crazy words to throw at you. I then needed to add some more information from the area data class to be able to generate the terrain. I added the size of the area to the class to easily gather that information. I then set to work creating the noise value. Noise simply needs the x and z coordinates, then frequency and amplitude? I was a little confused on what those values did, but I'll get back to that. I then needed to use the noise value to get the height relative to the area size. To do that though, I need more information in the area data class again. Anyway, this gets the relative distance the current location is from the bottom corner. I then use that in the loop to check if the block needs to be placed. Finally, I simply add the new terrain shape to the list of shapes and it was good to go. What generated as a result of all this work was not all good though. I got these pillars. I mean, sure, it looks interesting, but it doesn't really look anything like terrain. So I thought, oh, I need to normalize the noise data and return the value from -1 to +1. Then to get a value from 0 to 1, I just need to add 1 and divide by 2. Simple enough. I also threw in a print statement to make sure I was getting the correct values. You know, debug stuff. And back to testing I went. Surely it'll look more like terrain now, right? Wrong. It's the cheese generator from the intro. Okay, so the rest of this is basically a montage of me messing with frequency and amplitude values. As I was saying earlier, I was unsure what these values actually did. So I started off by randomly setting them and testing the result. The only reason I was doing this was because of how well the documentation is written for this class. It simply says how much to alter the frequency by each octave. That doesn't really help. I tried large values, and small values, and I tried other values. But nothing worked. I then saw the scale option, and I added a parameter to easily change this in-game, thinking surely this would solve my problem. Boy, was I wrong. It only seemed to make things worse. I finally realized that I'd only tried large round numbers, and by large I mean values greater than 1. So I set the scale to a tiny 0.05 and their frequency to 1. I then got this beautiful looking terrain out of it. Finally. After spending ages trying large values, I found that I only needed tiny ones. It'd be nice if the documentation gave me some insight into this beforehand, but what can you do? Next up, I added a value limiter for the terrain's parameters, so only a set value range can be entered.
Any ideas?
The scale you can enter for the terrain is between 1 and 10, 1 making the terrain spread out super far, and 10 making it all bunch up. For the moment, the command won't tell you the limit, but if you set something too high or too low, it'll just set it to the maximum or minimum value. I may implement something in the future to tell you the range, but I want to add a lot more info to the command, so I'll probably just add that all at once. Anyway, terrain is pretty boring if it's all one block type, so I went and made an overlay shape too. Overlay has a single parameter, so you can set the depth, and has a range of 1 to 10 blocks. As for its functionality, place mode places the blocks on top of existing blocks, while replace and break replaces existing blocks. Break obviously just removes them, and replace, well, replaces. Since overlay only really needs to loop over the top of the area and check downwards for blocks, I only need to loop over the X and Z axes. Also, since the loop will always start at the bottom corner first, I added a way to move the current point. So for overlay, I move the current point up to the top of the area. The overlay shape then loops downwards through the area to check if it can find any solid blocks. If it does find one in the area, it then proceeds to do another loop to place or replace blocks for the amount of the depth parameter. And finally, I added the new overlay shape to the list of shapes, and we go back into Minecraft to test it. I have the perfect thing to test on, the terrain I could now generate. Only one issue. Depth is 1, but the amount of blocks overlaid is 2. Simple to fix. I just set the wrong comparison in the loops. After fixing that, it works perfectly! Here's a depth of 1. And removing a depth of 1. Now for a depth of 2. And a replaced depth of 3. And once again, we've reached the end of the video. The terrain took a long time, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I can now turn my flat world into anything I wish. If you have any ideas for any other shapes to add, or have any questions, please leave a comment below. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more videos as they come out, please subscribe to my channel. I'll now leave you with an overlay test on a sphere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.